Welcome to Beyond the Closing Table. I'm your host, Michael Martin, and I'm here to interview top producing real estate agents, top producing loan officers, and successful business owners. Very excited to have my next guest, Mr. Aaron Voss. He owns VR Custom Homes. He's been a great friend of mine for many years. Certainly, we've gotten a lot closer over the last few. Thank you so much for being here, Aaron.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Absolutely.
I feel so important now that I'm on your podcast.
That's right. You are very important to me for sure. And so let's jump into important people and why you're important. So you've actually become important to me for it's funny. I'm trying to think when I first met you. If I'm betting, it was probably somewhere around 2012. 13. When did you move here?
So yeah, we would have moved here in about late 2011. So okay. Yeah, you'd probably met me around late 2011, early 2012.
Yeah, you were working on Kim's team when I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And you were at Keller Williams Preferred for, I don't know how long, probably 6-7 years?
Yeah, it was at least several years. It's funny that you mentioned it because I was thinking about it this morning when I got dressed. One of the things, even if we never got as close as we have got, I would pretty confident that I would always remember you by, you were the first person to tell me about Olokai flip-flops.
You're wearing them today.
And in honor of that, I'm wearing them today. I just remember thinking when you first told me about it, I of course was first moved up here, hadn't, gotten financially established yet, but I remember thinking, man, this guy pays how much for flip-flops? And I was just like, that's crazy. They can't be that good. And then I bought one. Yeah. And then I was like, I get it.
Yeah, it's funny. I know I told you the story, so I won't go into all that. By the way, we're sponsored by Olokai flip-flops. Just kidding.
It's just an idea.
Yeah, that's right. We have to reach out to them. And so, yeah, they're great, incredibly comfortable flip-flops. They're still my favorite flip-flops. I have the second pair now, however many years that is later. Mm-hmm. But fortunately, they gave me the second pair for free. I didn't have to buy them because the thing popped out, and I just sent them a picture, and they sent me new ones. That's how great of a company. You spend $130 or whatever for flip-flops, and they'll do that. Yeah. So that was obviously, again, many years ago. You had sold real estate. You just moved here from Florida, right?
That's right.
Reasonably close from that. And at that time, it was you and your wife and your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Your son wasn't born yet, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so let's go back a little bit into Florida. So you're from Florida, kind of.
Yep. So I was born in Oklahoma. My first part of my childhood was in Michigan, and then moved to Florida when I was about 6 or 7. And I was there until about 2025.
Okay. Mm-hmm. 2020. Oh, you were 20.
Yeah, till I was 25. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah,
and which was back in 2011, 2012.
Yeah. So that's when I met you.
Right after our
young
daughter was born. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Very good. And so, what brought you to North Carolina specifically from Florida, and what were you doing in Florida before you came here?
Yeah, so it was kind of a journey that brought me here. Kind of started with, I went to UCF in Orlando for college, and after a couple years there, I had met my now wife, and I just kind of realized that I kind of got bit by the entrepreneurial bug, and thought just finishing my degree wasn't in my best interest at the moment, so I left school. I went home and read every book I could read on flipping houses and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you name it, all the typical things for entrepreneurs. And I just kind of got engaged right away, started a real estate investment company. And this was back in 2004. So I had 2 or 3 years of, kind of getting my bearings.
2004, how old were you then?
20-ish.
Yeah.
So I was young and I was hungry, and and so we basically took that time. I started, my first deal was interesting. So I just got back from college. I was living with my parents, and I remember reading all these books about using other people's money because I was broke. I was a college kid, and so I was reading all these books, and so I was like, you know what, I can do this. And so I did just kind of like the books told you, and I went out and I was like, man, I got to find a deal. I got to find a property, get it under contract, and then I'm going to sell the rights to the contract to somebody else, assign the rights, and they pay me amount of money. So I found this vacant lot on a lake, and it was perfect scenario. It was an out of state owner, and they didn't know what it was worth. And I sent them an offer, and they accepted it. And I just remember thinking, I'm like 19 or 20 years old, and this investor, basically was paying me $30,000 just to sign over the rights to a piece of property, and it was just mind blowing at that point. But then I just kind of took that money, and instead of spending it on stuff, I was like, okay, what deal can I roll this into?
Sure.
And by the time 2000,
so you never actually had to buy that property, right?
No,
you just get it under contract and then you sell it.
Yeah, I assigned the rights to the contract, so that investor then paid me $30,000 for the right to be able to go and purchase it for what I had it under contract for. So that was my first deal, and then started with a little condo project. And by 2006, 2007, we were doing about 3 or 4 flips at a time. And I think anybody that's familiar with the real estate industry knows the next part of that story.
Especially in Florida, it happened a little earlier there.
Yeah, so I remember, at that age, you're young, you're invincible, you can't do any wrong, and so let's see. So when the market turned, it was, I think if you look back, there were signs, but when you were in the middle of it, you didn't see it, you didn't feel it, and all of a sudden,
forest for the trees.
Yeah, so all of a sudden it's like everything that came easy before and everything that used to just happen automatically and you just made assumptions that would happen weren't happening anymore. And so I remember, I think we got stuck in like 4 or 5 deals when the market crashed. And in Florida, which was different than here, I mean, when it crashed, it was like 40% crash.
Yeah.
So, I remember meeting with some people that...
And you say you got stuck in these deals. You already own the properties and working on fixing them to flip them.
Correct. And so I went from, I don't know, maybe close to $1 million net worth to being bankrupt in about 18 months.
Wow. And you're pretty newly married?
Yep.
No kids yet at that point?
Yeah, no kids at that point, correct.
Yeah. But that's a fun thing to deal with your brand new wife.
Man, I'm glad I was young.
Yeah.
That was the cost of education, and I feel like every year is some more education with some cost with it, but that's the excitement of the entrepreneurial game, I guess.
Yeah, Alex Hormozy, I reference him a lot in the podcast because I've watched all his stuff or a lot of his stuff, and he talks about the cost of education, right? And the education is not necessarily what it costs to go to Harvard or to East Carolina or to whatever school, although that is a cost. Sure. There's a lot of other costs when it comes to education, and sometimes the ones like that one teach us way more than we would have gotten at a university.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the parallels. So, I take that experience and now I reference it as we move into the economic times that we have now, and it's the the different things that are happening politically, inflation, interest rates, buyer demand, all that kind of stuff like that, where I'm a little bit more cognizant of what's going on and making sure that I don't repeat the mistakes of 2007 and use wisdom.
Well, there's risk and reward, right? And so you're going to have to take some risk if you want the reward. You obviously had some risk, a pretty heavy risk at that time.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you got to learn a lesson, right? Yeah. I've talked about this before too, and I bought a house in 2007, and my boss said, "You really think it's a good time to buy a I don't know, $500,000 house or whatever it was?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And our company was struggling with. I go, God has always blessed me at this point, and I don't think he's, what I really learned was God was going to teach me a very important lesson in humbleness for sure. And so, we had certainly those tough times. Really, 2007 through 2012 were just, it's crazy. Those 5 years of struggle to get through, and then a lot more learning after that. But so you deal with that challenge. In 2007-ish, I guess, is when that was happening. Mm-hmm. So you go through bankruptcy, and now you're like, okay, what's next?
Yeah. So even after failure, the entrepreneurial spirit doesn't just die. It just kind of goes into hibernation. It's like, okay, what's, like you said, what's next? And
By the way, I don't call that failure. Like, right? Failure is if you quit,
sure.
right? You're just, it's more of the, it's part of the lesson on the journey, right? If you just said, I'm done, I'm never going to do this, and you could get a regular job and, a W-2 job, and that's what you do forever, then maybe you failed in that person. I think ultimately it was just part of the learning process.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about adaptation. I think most entrepreneurs will tell you that it's not so much what you're doing, but it's the fact that you're doing something
Sure.
that is what matters. It's just kind of what vehicle are you using for your entrepreneurial gift at that moment. So, I mean, I think after the market crashed, you do what you have to do when you're a young married couple and you have a responsibility to your wife and your family. And so my wife was a massage therapist at the time. We opened up a spa, so I was able to use some of that energy in that endeavor. That grew really, really quickly. She was very, very gifted, still is very gifted, and so we had our own spa. But then when she got pregnant with Madison, our daughter, I think about 7 months into that pregnancy, she's like, okay, can't do this anymore. I can't massage. And so we had to make the hard decision to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to do what I need to do so that you can stay at home.
So did you start massaging people?
Negative. I have like the attention span of like a fish. I'm like, ah. So yeah, I would not be a good massage therapist. I get bored in 5 seconds. My wife will tell you, because every time she asks for a massage, it like lasts 5 seconds, and then I get distracted. But so we had to make the tough decision to close that down, and I just said, you know what, you be a mom, you be a wife, and I'll take care of it.
Okay. So, all right. So that is what, 2000, is that when you guys moved up here or before that?
So yeah, so after Madison was born, so like right before Madison was born, I started the EMT program at the local community college in Florida, and my desire was to become a firefighter. Because of the schedule, it kind of allowed me, I felt like it would be something where I could give the stability that I know I needed to get my wife, and still give me some time off where I could not let the entrepreneurial side of me just go away and die off. So I was like, okay, I think that might be a good fit for a good next step. So went into the EMT program, because in Florida, you had to get all your certifications before you could even apply to get a job. It's okay. In North Carolina, it's different. Most of the places they prefer you to come in just green and no certifications, and they hire you for their academy and take you through the whole thing. Okay. So I was in the process of getting that done, and my wife, her brother, was getting married, and the rehearsal dinner was at TPC at Wakefield. So we came up here for that, and at that time I was like, we were thinking about moving, but we weren't really sure where. And I remember getting up here and just being like, I love it up here. Yeah. We should move here. Like, as random as that is. And my wife's like, whatever. And so she wasn't as convinced as I was, but I was pretty convinced that was the way to go. And so I started looking into it, and I was like, oh, actually, you don't even have to have your certifications here to become a firefighter. So I was like, well, I can transfer my real estate license up here, because I had my real estate license down in Florida. And then I can, apply to different firefighter positions here. And so that's kind of what the start of the draw was. And then I remember the time that really convinced me to move here is, and I've told this to a lot of people, if you were at a coffee shop where I lived in Florida, which is like right in the middle of the state in between Orlando and Tampa, you'd go to a coffee shop and you'd hear the local grandma talking about her grandkids, just little things here and there, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But then you go to a coffee shop in the Triangle, and everybody around you is wheeling and dealing, doing something, working on something big, and the energy was just infectious. And I think if you've lived your whole life in a place like this, you become numb to that kind of energy. But when you come from somewhere like where I was, it's like I have to get myself in a place like this. Yeah. So
you felt drawn, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just in. So
how many days were you guys up here for the wedding?
3 days.
Did you come back before you moved here, or you were like 3 days and you were, I'm moving?
I came back one time to because there was a hiring process. I think that one was for the either Greensboro or Durham. I can't remember, but I came up to do like the agility tests that you for that process. So that's what.
Okay.
That was the only other time, and then I said.
And was that for firefighting or EMT?
Firefighting.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you so much for watching our podcast so far. If you do me a huge favor before you forget about it, to like, subscribe, and if you would, just leave a quick comment about what you think of the podcast. And if you want to share it with your friends, I'd love that too. Thanks again so much. We'll finish up right now. So you came up here, you and your family moved up here, and you got in the real estate business here. Mm-hmm. You were kind of continued that here. You didn't do a whole lot of flipping and stuff here, right, at that point?
No, I mean, I was definitely didn't have the finances to do so. And, being a new father, I think my focus was finding something consistent and dependable was the top priority, because at the end of the day,
you chose real estate?
Yeah. Well, I'd choose a lot of things at one time to see what would work. But I just remember thinking, I can't use my creative talents if things at home aren't what they need to be. And so I had to focus on finding some stability there, making sure that those needs were met before I could really take the time and energy to do something great.
Okay. So you move up here, you get the role within the fire department. Mm-hmm. I don't think I realized you were in the fire department at that point in time. Maybe were you doing like part-time, or were you full-time?
No, so I didn't do anything in the fire department for the first several years that I was up here. So I remember actually I was in the Keller Williams office in Briar Creek that I met you at when I got the call from the city of Raleigh saying that they were offering me a position in their upcoming
I remember
academy.
You telling me that, and I was like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, you're doing pretty good at this real estate thing. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Gosh, that must have been, I'm guessing, around 2019?
No, so actually, believe it or not, it was 2014.
Okay.
Like the fall of 2014. And I remember thinking, and this is just the way God works all the time, I feel like, it's like I'd pretty much just kind of given up because, firefighting is a young man's game for sure. And I remember thinking, okay, it's 2014. So I was 30 years old basically. And I was like, if I know I have to work 30 years, and I think at this point I probably have passed my prime for this. And so I just stopped looking for opportunities. And then all of a sudden I was at the gym off of Glenwood Avenue. I think it's like now the Tesla dealership, mm-hmm. but it was a gym back then. Right. And I remember thinking that I was heading to the locker room, and I see this little sign. It was like, "Hey, Raleigh Fire Department hiring," and I was like, "You know what the heck? I'll try it." And sure enough, like just everything lined up, and then like I said, I was in the Keller Williams office when I got the call and said, "Hey, how would you like to join us in our upcoming academy?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so that was kind of how it all came together.
All right. So do you have any? I should have asked you this ahead of time, but do you have any like crazy firefighter stories?
Probably not something that I'm going to share on here. I mean, there's I think there's the thing that I will say is anybody that knows anybody in law enforcement or firefighting knows that you just can't take that stuff home. Like, yeah, it's not like I sold a house today, so I'm going to go home and I'm going to tell my wife about it.
Sure.
But the things that you go through, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
And I think that...
Well, we see this stuff on TV, right? On these TV shows.
Well,
in drama.
In TV, it's a lot of like, hookups and all the fun stuff, and like every call is like a major disaster. But the reality is most of the calls you go on are, I think my arm hurts, mm-hmm. or, some things that are not, what don't seem to be very life and death. But the consistent thing that we always try to do is treat every person as if, they depended on you for their life, even if their situation wasn't urgent.
Any
Because
cats out of trees?
Because at that, I did have that call. Believe it or not, I thought, mostly as a joke, but I did have a call one time for a cat in a tree, and it was at 3 a.m. and it was 20 degrees outside. I was not particularly happy, but getting the 7 years or so that I was in the fire department gave me the opportunity just to really just nurture and hone that, treat every person as if they're the most important person, because on that day when they call 911, you are the most important
That's
person.
Right. At that moment, there's nobody else.
At that moment, you are the person they're looking to for all the answers. And so dealing with that pressure, I feel like it's helped prepare me for what I do now, because in a lot of ways, even though it's not life or death, purchasing a home, building a home, doing a major remodel, this is some of the biggest decisions that a consumer is going to make.
Yeah.
And so, being able to handle the pressure and the significance of that moment is really important, because people are depending on me and you and what you do to set them up for success.
Yeah. Aaron, I have to say, you are without a doubt one of the most genuine people I know, one of the most caring people I know. And you always have nothing but, unless you're like just really ribbing at someone, because you always generally have nothing but really, really amazing compliments and things to say about and what you hope and pray for.
Yeah.
You do that more than any human being I know of when you communicate with me, and it certainly means a lot when I feel that, not just see it. So I appreciate you sharing, kind of your experience there with the firemen, and that is so important.
Yeah.
Because you are, right, as you said, the most important to that person. Does the fire department train you on that kind of emotional stuff?
No, I think it's like throw you in the deep end.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have, they have programs that they try to feel like they're doing something. But I think at the end of the day, some people handle it better than others. I'm sure there are a lot of people that handled it better than me. But I think I just think that there's a lot of stuff that comes into that you just have to get in, and it's kind of like being an entrepreneur. Like, you don't, if you wait around and prepare to have everything figured out before you do it, you're never going to start anything.
Sure.
You're never going to start anything. The key to success, if you listen to any, entrepreneurial training, is instead of waiting for it to be perfect, put something out there and have people tell you what's wrong with it. But our egos are so sensitive, and we feel like we can't put it out there unless it's perfect. But the reality is put something out there, even though it's not perfect, because you will make faster progress in the market than outside the market.
I thought about doing a podcast for a couple of years, and I went to an event this past summer that was kind of like, okay, you've got to go do this. Like, this is still took me 6 months to get this thing off the ground. Mm-hmm. And it was never a goal to make it perfect, but it certainly was a goal to just like, let's do it. Now, I did want to make sure it was done right, but at the same time, with the right equipment and the production and so forth. But it is really important that you just do something. One of the jobs I had, I think I've talked to you about this before, but I don't know that I have. My dad was a builder, architect, developer. Mm-hmm. And so I had a lot of summer jobs, weekend jobs, spring break jobs, because I was not a really good kid, so I got to work during spring break a lot of times. And so where I had, I was on job sites a lot. And I just remember people saying, do something if it's wrong, right? But because you go to job sites and so many people are just sitting on their hands or sitting around waiting for somebody to do something. Mm-hmm. Like, let's go. Right? We can fix it along the way if we have to. So I feel like I've had a little bit of that mentality when it comes to most things. I'm not going to overanalyze it. I want to get enough information, move forward to the decision, and then we'll alter as we need to. I think that served me well. I've certainly made some bigger mistakes because of it, but you learn from it as well.
Yeah, no, I've told you this the other day, man. I came in before you even recorded your first episode and saw your setup, and I'm just super proud of you, man. I think it's awesome that you're, again, getting in front of a camera and a microphone and kind of pouring your guts out and letting the world see you. it takes a lot of guts.
I appreciate it. Well, it's only about 25 people seeing me. So.
Well, that's not what I've heard. Not after our Olakai sponsorship,
That's
where
right.
it's going to blow up.
Okay, so let's kind of talk about kind of where you moved from there. So you were selling real estate. You were, obviously building a business here in this marketplace, and then you got into the firefighting stuff. And the cool thing about firefighting is and I know, certainly a lot more, but I know a lot of firefighters, and they always have another business or another job, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's landscaping, real estate, construction, there's a lot of opportunity because you work like crazy, and then you have no work, and so you've got a lot of free time. So you decided, and you'd love to hear how this kind of came about. I'm guessing it came from what you were doing earlier, but you decided to get your GC license.
Yeah. So as a real estate agent, I kept on finding myself in situations where, I would have a client that's like, I really like this house, but this kitchen, it's a deal breaker. And like in a lot of things, what other people see as obstacles, I see as opportunities to win and create a win-win. And so, I was thinking, man, it'd be nice if I could just, say, hey, what if I were to tell you that, after closing and before you moved in, we could have this and it would cost you this kind of thing. And so it's kind of like another tool in the toolbox. But I didn't have enough impetus to get it done at that point. But then speaking of flipping houses, I had a friend of mine who I met at church, and he was like, hey, I'm doing my first flip in Pittsburgh, and I'm having some issues. Do you think you'd be interested in consulting with me, since I know you did this a lot in Florida? And I was like, sure. So we kind of got involved doing that, and like right in the middle of what I was helping him do there, the GC just like walked off the job and said, basically stopped responding, which unfortunately is a all too common story in the construction industry, which is, been important for us to overcome and build a level of rapport and trust with our clients that, they're like family. They're important to us. Mm-hmm. And you don't walk away from family. You don't walk away from clients. That's not what you do. You find a solution. But I said, and when we tried to find another general contractor to take over this job, nobody wanted to take it over because of the liability of what the other contractor had already done, which I understood. But I said, man, I'm never going to be in this position again. I was like, I'm going to get my GC license. I'm finally just going to do it. And that way I'll have it as a tool in my toolbox, and I'll never be stuck in a situation like this where I'm depending on some other GC to take on the liability and charge me out the nose.
So you never got your license to go build houses necessarily?
So no, when I got my GC license at that point, that was like a full GC to build houses.
But I mean, your dream wasn't to do that. You got your license because of this situation.
Yes, correct. And so where it kind of morphed is, so I originally looked at it as a tool in the toolbox, but then we found a piece of land in Wake Forest near Hazen Tree Golf Course, and I was like, I'm just gonna build our house. I've never built a house, but I've remodeled a ton of houses.
I remember you telling me that you were gonna do this, and you reached out to me to help you with a loan, and I wasn't able to help you because I didn't do that kind of the loans at the time, and I referred you to somebody, and I was like, this dude's gonna build a freaking. How many square feet was that house?
So I went from never building a house to this house ended up being like 6,700 square feet.
Basically 2 houses.
Yeah, 2 houses, because my parents were moving up from Florida. I'm the youngest of 5, and the rule with grandparents is wherever the grandkids are, the grandparents follow. Yeah. So I just slowly like pulled all my siblings up here and said, okay, I'm going to get my parents up here at some point. So they decided to move up, and I was like, hey, why don't I have this perfect basement lot. Why don't I just mirror the first floor, which had a full kitchen, dining room, family room, master suites, guest suite, like all on the first floor. I'm just going to mirror it and put the whole thing on the basement level. I'm going to put an elevator in, Looking back, I was crazy.
I thought you were crazy. I can tell you that. Because I knew where you were in your career at that time. And I was like, how are you even thinking about doing this, much as actually doing it?
Yeah.
And so, but sure as hell you did it. Like you actually did it.
Yeah.
I never saw that house ever until you went to put it on the market. Was it last year?
Yeah, 2023. Yeah.
Okay, so a year and a half ago or so. And that's when I saw it online. I was like, holy crap, that's that freaking house that you built like that many years ago. And what an amazing house it was. So you decided to build this monstrosity of a house with basically two houses in one. Your family moves up, or your parents move up, and so they're living downstairs. God bless you for that. I love my mom and dad, and they're not married but anymore. But I don't know that I would want either one of them living in my house. But I don't know if they wouldn't want to live in my house either. So that's fair. And so interesting. So. All right, so you go from fireman to realtor fireman to you get your license, you build your own house, okay, and then you decide.
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of building my house, and I have a neighbor down the street that's like, "Hey, we just bought some land. Would you be interested in helping us build our house?" And I was like, "Sure."
Did he say, how many houses have you built before?
Well, no, they did know because they were neighbors. So
This one hadn't fallen down yet.
Yeah, no, we haven't had any houses fall down yet. Career's still young.
That's right.
But I remember just thinking, that was a great opportunity, and the thing is anybody who's been a real estate agent knows the joke of like everybody knows about 1,000 real estate agents, and so, but the reality is that there just isn't a ton of reputable contractors and builders who are going to treat people ethically. And
the market is wide open for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really, it's sad. It's sad because it's like a lot of times I'm dealing with, my clients come to me with a lot of bad experiences in their past, and they're like, so it's kind of like relationships. You have to deal with the baggage that all of your friends and family members have because of other times that they've been hurt by other people, and so it's really important that, like I said earlier, that trust and rapport gets built because, without that trust, the process is really hard. And I want my clients to know, above all else, that we're going to treat them like family, and that if they ask me to do something, I tell them all the time, I was like, I'm just making you this promise. If you ask me to do something, I'm not just an order taker. I'm not going to take your order and then give you your order. I'm going to treat you like family, and if I would tell my own parents, hey, I don't think that's a good idea, I'm going to tell you that I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay.
And if you still tell me after I say that you want me to do it, I will do it for you.
Sure.
But I have to sleep at night, and I really think it's important to be genuine and open with people about, what the pros and cons are, because it's like, to me, it's more of a relational process where it's not about what countertop you want or what flooring you want. It's what kind of life do you want to live in this house? How can we do things in this house to make your life living in it better? And that's a big thing for us.
Yeah. So I think that's super important. I think certainly not every builder has that. There are obviously some great builders out there, right?
Lots of great builders.
Yeah, in the marketplace. But not every builder has that, I think, philosophy that wants to treat every one of their clients like family. And frankly, that means you also have to not necessarily take on every client too, because they're not going to be a great fit like family would be.
Right.
So last year was a pretty big year for you. Let's talk a little bit about that, and we're gonna have to wrap up shortly after that. But so how many houses did you have in the Parade of Homes last year?
So we went from never having a house in a parade to last year we ended up, originally we were going to have 5 in the parade. One of them, 3 of them sold before the parade started, just like the week or 2 before the parade started. 2 of them said, you can keep it in the parade. One of them said, the condition on this purchase is that it's not in the parade, so we had to pull that one. But we ended up having the 4 in the parade, and what a wild ride.
I remember you were running around like crazy for, was it 2
we're
a couple weeks before that?
Yeah, we're a small family-based company. We don't have a ton of team members. It was right up there with the craziness of building a 7,000 square foot house without ever having built before. I definitely think I lost a few years of my life, but what an awesome learning experience. And I would feel remiss if I didn't mention that a lot of those projects that we did last year, were possible because of a partnership with Jim Allen and the opportunities that he's given me in the luxury new construction world has been. I'm just super thankful. Mm-hmm. I think that God puts people in our lives to get us to where He has for us, and not everybody gets to know Jim, and not everybody gets to work with him. But I'm just definitely thankful that he, has given me some of the opportunities I have, and I think that I'll always remember that.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny, if I'm not mistaken, you met Jim in my house, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, talk about divine appointment. So we're not that necessarily God would be super excited about the fact that we were playing poker, but we you had a poker night. Jim was there. Turb was there, and we just got to talking about.
Big Al might have been there too. I can't remember if
he might have been. Yeah. And we just Jim ended up sitting next to me, and man, I was in that position after him the whole night, which is not where I really wanted to be, but it was better than being before him.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think I was just a couple sitting next to him from that night, but he's played twice with us, and one of those nights I took his money. It's probably the only time I'll ever get it, but it was I will not forget it for sure. So, hey, listen, man, thank you so much for coming here, for sharing your story, for being super vulnerable.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I'm super grateful to have you as a friend, certainly as just another business owner to share ideas about. Again, I hope that that the audience here has gotten to learn a lot from you about what you've experienced, what you've gone through. Thank you so much for your time watching our podcast today. Please do me a favor and like, comment, and share with your friends, family, anybody that you know that's thinking about or is in real estate, mortgage lending, or owns a business or entrepreneurial in general. Would love for you to share it with them, and I look forward to seeing you next time.